3 parts of a leg. Here comes 49er, 2-year-old champ from last year, putting in a bid on the outside, and down the stretch they come. Winning colors in front. Here comes 49er on the outside. Lucas and Stevens. It's a driving finish. Winning colors.
Frost in his fourth, coming to the finish. American Pharoah and Victor Espinoza have won the Kentucky Derby. Firing Line was second. Dortmund was third.
Good Magic and Audible justifying a 2-length lead. Final try from Good Magic. All rise for Justify. The Kentucky Derby was never in doubt. Wins by 2.5. It's tight for second between Good Magic and Audible. Instilled Regard was fourth.
Time for Capital OTB's annual Kentucky Derby Seminar with your hosts, Seth Merrow, and special guest, Anthony Mormino and Kevin Cox.
Yes, welcome to the annual Capital OTB Kentucky Derby Seminar. As you saw in the setup there, it's always a memorable event, and I think this year is setting up to be equally as memorable. And we'll go through the Derby, we'll go through the Oaks, and try to give you some ideas for the weekend. I am joined by the Brooklyn Cowboy, Kevin Cox, and Anthony Mormino. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
Are you saying the seminar is a memorable event or the Derby?
I was saying the Derby, but I think the seminar is also
I'll tell you one thing.
event.
There's never been bad seminars. There have been some stiffs when the Kentucky Derby now, and more than a handful of them. And as we're taping this Wednesday night, I was 361 days early with Anna Marie, who won the Isaac Murphy in a long drive at 1.5 miles. That was my pick last year for the Kentucky Derby, but I was early.
Before we get into it specifically, let's just hit on the weekend overall. I have Oaks Day with their 5 pick 5s, Derby Day, there are 6 pick 5s, pick 4s. There's an all stakes, all dirt pick 5 on Saturday. There's a 3-year-old only pick 3. Obviously, the Oaks Derby double. I mean, there's a great wagering menu focused on a couple of really good cards as well, highlighted by the Oaks and the Derby, but the undercard, Torpedo Anna on Friday. Great stakes action on Saturday. Any overall thoughts on the weekend coming up? Anthony, I'll start with you.
Hard to remember that Torpedo Anna, who I loved, was not the chalk in the Oaks last year. It's amazing how things like turn, etc. But just FYI, who I don't think has ever won again, was the chalk over Torpedo Anna. And
she was the 2-year-old champ, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The one thing that is never talked about until Friday afternoon, my favorite part of this weekend is the betting menu. That, to me, the reason the Derby is exciting to me, especially we've had so many bad winners lately, is it offers a betting opportunity because the 19 betting interest. The one downside is we don't often, and Seth and I talked about this before, you don't have 90-1 shots so often. There seems to be 10 horses at 30-1 when you look at the charts. When you look at old charts, it was much different. The spectrum for the betting was so pronounced. And now it seems as if 12 of the 20 will be between 20 and 40-1.
We had some long shots that just had people thinking, oh, you can play, Mind That Bird, Giacomo, and they got it done. And so then people started to spread around a little bit. People
I think that's
plugged in.
Well, if the morning line odds maker has his way, no horse will be higher than 49-1 in the Derby.
I would bet they are wrong. We could get to that. The morning line odds. I think David Aragona for the Daily Racing Farm did a better job for the public than another jurisdiction. And the morning line odds, there is a rigid definition of the job. And I think David did a much better job setting the morning line for the Kentucky Derby than I think I counted, it doesn't matter, but 7 horses at 30-1. Okay.
We've discussed it before, how it used to be an honorable thing. You have your name in the program, odds by Don Laplace, I guess, in New York years ago.
Listen, I've said this before. I grew up with Don Laplace. He was great. We had some rough waters there for a couple years, and then David Aragona put Naira back on the zenith of morning line odds. And we say it all the time about how when you have a good one, and we won't mention others, I mean, it's also hard. In other jurisdictions, they can't afford, they got to wear 10 different hats. But David put New York back on the straight and narrow after my entire youth was, an exceptional morning line odds maker. And I think it's very important. It's less important for me because I'm a goofball, but it's a very valuable thing to people that go to the track who don't spend 4 hours every single day.
And more so on a day that a lot of people
Yes.
don't know better.
Yes.
Where they need all the help they can get and need all the guidance they can get.
Yeah.
And by the way, you mentioned the whole betting setup.
Oh, it's the best part.
I'm doing a bankroll bet for Capital OTB again, and part of it is on Friday. I have to do a $500 late pick 5, which starts with the torpedo, just to drive people nuts, and a race. Starting with that race, I would give anything for that race to be just 2 races early or something. I mean, it's in the pick 6, and I actually think she's going to have to dance a little bit because that race is not.
The 2 Chad Brown runners are legit in there.
Absolutely, I'm at least 3 deep there, which is making me cringe in a race with only 4 or 5 horses that actually have a shot to start on.
Look at that race. What
way.
Did they make her on the morning line?
2 to 5. I mean, you got to make her something. I know, but those Chad.
I mean, that will
horses,
probably be the right price. I'm just thinking from how we would look at it, that's an attractive bet against.
with those Chad horses in there. I'm seeing her in my head. It's deserving to be 4 to 5, but she's going to be 2 to 5. It's just
Yes.
Randomized and Raging Sea are both legit in there. Torpedo Anna will take some action. She's not invincible though. You look at the numbers, the buyers. Now she does seem to run as fast as the buyers she needs to get it done.
Right.
But there's also the quick turnaround. Kenny McPeak came right out of the apple blossom and said, we're going to the La Troyenne. But in this day and age, it's kind of a quick turnaround. Now he said this after the apple blossom. He said, if I got a horse and they're ready to go, I'll go. And he's proven that over the last few years. But she has a great storyline to the weekend, certainly.
One thing Beyer said in one of his books was it's a big misnomer to feel that if a horse won under wraps, that they could easily have won by 20 lengths. It doesn't always necessarily work like that, where, she's much better than, she actually declined from a speed figure standpoint in the last race. But, man, it started out to pick 5 with that. Caramba. Anyway.
But it is a great couple of days of racing and of wagering available. And so looking forward to it, certainly. As you say, you have the bankroll coming up, $2,500 to play on behalf of 50 OTB patrons. So good luck in there.
I'm up about 4 to 5,000 over the last few years doing the bankroll, but thanks to no balls, most likely.
I was going to say, the one you had the nice, 30 to 1 shot in the middle of a pick 3, wasn't
38 to 1.
Is that his Breeders' Cup win?
Oh, no, I had him that day also. No, he won on Derby Day with Gerardo Corrales
2 years ago.
going in from the 11 hole to the 1 hole, went all the way on a rock-hard turf course that day.
Yeah,
I'll tell you one thing. They in my lifetime, what Churchill Downs Incorporated has been able to do for these 2 days is remarkable because I've only been to 1 Derby. And let me tell you something. Oaks Day, the day before, was like a throwaway day. And we had color TV when I went. So it wasn't 1950s. But what they've turned it into and the racing, the best 3-year-olds, Seth's favorite subset, the 3-year-olds on the turf, they have it all. They've corralled, the early season Breeders' Cup races. But I guess you could say the only thing they don't have is they don't have a great older male race. That's the Stephen Foster weeks down the road. That's about the only group they let go away.
Oh, they're getting fierceness and locked in here.
Right,
and so
they're catching up as they have done.
I do like that your date marker is color TV. I can relate to that. I totally relate
because I know there are young people out there going, well, what was that? And I go, I want to give them some variety. Like we had cars with air conditioning and we had color TV.
What's the gap before the big race? Everyone's yinging and yanging about
Is it an hour and a half yet?
It's at least an hour. Yeah.
It was about 28 minutes when I went.
You got time to play the old big troller between these 2 races.
Well, the kicker about the thing that says the weekend for Churchill is different than any other is that grandstand they built on the clubhouse turn that really doesn't get any use other than Derby weekend.
I told this story, I think last years ago, once again, the color TV era, they took down all the seats on the infield. Then somebody got the idea, what does it matter? We're not investing. We're putting it up permanently, and that's it. And when, what I always like about Churchill is they just opened on Saturday night when I was coming back from Lexington. And come Sunday morning, much of the air is out of the balloon. And they got to run until just about Independence Day. But all that edifice will just sit there. That big TV they got.
But
It's the best.
Like Jerry's uncle said, it must be nice to have that kind of disposable income just to do things like that.
What they spent, 40 million on that 1 year paddock?
I think you're right.
20 million,
Yeah.
40 million. They
Yeah,
just used it to 1 year.
Yeah. But it is a great weekend of racing coming up. Oaks and Derby. We'll get to the Derby in a little bit, but we'll kick things off with some Kentucky Oaks thought, and we'll just look at the entire field before giving selections. So let's start out. Race number 11 on Friday. It is the Kentucky Oaks. Go off a little before 6 p.m. That's when it's scheduled. So let's start by looking at the first three in the field early on, Simply Joking and Fondly. Anthony, we'll start with you.
You know what I find almost humorous is that, I'm just guessing here, but I think I'm a good guesser here, is that the average starts per 3-year-old filly will supersede the average starts
I
for the
think you're
3-year-old
right.
colts. I mean, Seth has talked about it since he's been with Capital, how much the game changed in 20 years. And we used to have this debate. Was it going to be 2 prep races or 3 prep races to the Derby? And I said to Seth 10 years ago, I said two prep races, 1.
Well, to me, one of the most notable things on the Derby side is New York and the Wood, and how the Wood has changed in prominence, which I think is because of its placement on the calendar now. It used to be 2 weeks before the Derby, but now they've moved it, 4 or 5 weeks? And so now you're in a spot where the weather is a little dicey, and so the connection's kind of, let's stay in
I'll
Florida
give you
or
the
go
one
wherever.
that changes, to me, the most noticeable historically. The Arkansas Derby used to be 2 weeks also. Now it's in March.
Yeah.
Well, let's edify a little bit of our younger audience and tell them what the final prep before the Derby used to be your last chance to get in.
Oh, wasn't it the Pat Day?
It's the Pat Day,
Like,
the Pat Day
like
mile.
4 days before?
4 days
Well,
before, you could still get into the Derby, and they would utilize it too.
The Stepping Stone, the Derby trial, things like
Derby
that.
trial, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
Derby trial, and then now it's the Pat Day mile.
Yeah.
It's changed. And kudos to the guys on DRF last night. If you can sit through that, the one thing they talked about is how in their professional lifetime, they being Andy Byer and Stephen Chris, how the data, if you have a 40-year data sheet, throw it out. Your data sheet needs to be 10 years. It's night and day the way the game is played. And anybody who puts out data the last 50 years, such and such, that's a waste of time. And with the Phillies, the average starter has more starts than the Colts, but in the group that Seth just mentioned, we get 2 of the newbies, basically. Fondly, and I want to say this, I said it off the air before we started, you're on your own with what you decide to make of the Colonial Downs races.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to give you 2 examples I said to the fellas. They had a horse debuting a mile, went 133 and change. They had a debut runner go 6 furlongs, 108 flat. I have no opinion on Fondly's race coming out of the Virginia Oaks. I have no opinion. We're going to get to the coach's horse in the Derby later on in the show. I have no idea. Simply Joking to me in the 4th career start, but seems to be a very viable player. Into Mischief is going to go down as one of the great stallions because not only his career, but that he has thrown sons of his. That's how you get to the pantheon. You need at least 2 sons, preferably 3, that become above average stallions. And I think Practical Joke is, he's like that duck. He's going under the water to become a
Now,
good
his
stallion.
runners get distance. How did he do going long?
That's not his game.
No,
That's
it's the wildest thing.
He is. Matter of fact, I was at an event. I drove right by Spendthrift. I was like, let's go see the big horse. I'll give you another funny story about Into Mischief. Ran in 6 career starts. 3 times he was favored, he lost. 3 times he wasn't the chalk, he won. Good luck to get that. But he's a beast. And Kevin makes a great point. He has produced horses, authentic, horse of the year, Kentucky Derby winner, Breeders' Cup, that go farther than him. And that's a good sign. And in the way the game is played now, 15 years ago, this would be a toss, but coming out of the fantasy, which is a race that I think is better than it looks on paper. And then you have early on from the inside, Safi Joseph comes out of the Gazelle, I think is a real reach, one of the longer shots. But in the first 3 horses, I think you have 2 horses Finally and Simply Joking, what do you think they're going to do?
Well, to Simply Joking's credit, debuted in a stake, so he eschewed running in a maiden event.
And I'll just give it. This is, we'll get out to it. And I have a question for Seth, because Seth taught me this just to show you old dogs who learn tricks. This is what I don't get, Seth. So Simply Joking comes out of a 90 in a fantasy that I think most people believe, unlike the Virginia Oaks, I think most of us think that the fantasy is close. So she's 10-1 on the morning line. Good Cheer comes out of a 91 at the Fairground Oaks, which, by the way, is a career best, and she's 6-5. And as I've said, I know I don't do the weekly thing anymore, so it's every 10.5 months I have to remind people, when you play the game for a long time, I'll take a horse that's 5 times the price, that's 1 digit off the buyer speed figure, which I don't use as a tool in the toolbox, but Seth completely convinced me betting is predicated on buyer speed figures enormously.
Yeah.
So
days.
Simply Joking, her 90, I would take my chances at double-digit odds to improve.
Well, actually, I don't see the horse being higher than 5 or 6-1. I just don't. I think everybody sees what you see.
The workout reports have been good too.
The ascension in buyers along the way, doing
So
it.
in that, you think she'll be the second choice?
I totally do.
Okay.
Would
I'm already depressed.
Would you not take $1,000 and lock into 8-1 on this horse right now? Simply Joking. Forget about 10-1.
8-1? Yeah.
Yeah.
8 would be fine.
Yeah.
I would be very I would consider that a slight overlay, and I only need overlay starts the conversation for me. 8-1, yes, I would sign on.
And plus a nice jock upgrade. I like Giroux going. People don't think that's his wheelhouse. I like him going long on speed horses on the dirt. I think he's very good at walking the dog, almost like a Rosario is. I love the jock change there. And early on, like you said, a little bit of a long shot, would need a big boost to do anything. One of my first auto horses in the race. And finally, second time going long, undefeated, yes. What was it? The old axiom, take a nice price on an undefeated horse if you can. And finally, it's going to be every bit of 12-1.
I think, but here's a question I've set for you mostly. What do you think wins this race, buyer speed figure wise? 93?
Yeah, I was going to say.
And who do you think in this race, a developing 3-year-old filly, couldn't run a 93?
Yeah. I mean, my pick's going to play kind of into that, in fact.
Okay, I can't
but
wait.
for me, on the first 3, I'm kind of what you have both alluded to early on and fondly are interesting. I could make cases for either of those. I didn't use them. Simply Joking, though, lightly raced and comes out of that fantasy, which was a good effort with a nice number. But as I said earlier, I was getting some good reports on the workouts the past week and a half or so as well. So I find that one interesting. Next 3, Drexel Hill, Quick Kick, Ballerina Dioro. Kevin, your thoughts on that group?
Drexel Hill is one of my. I only have two horses in the race at first glance, and Drexel Hill is the other one. The 2-turn numbers on the dirt. You have a 6 on fast track. Actually, only raced once going 2 turns on a fast track. A 64, finished 5th. Didn't beat much in the Busher at Aqueduct last out. That horse is pretty much an auto horse for me. As for Quick Kick, not much to get the pulse racing here either. Over the last 3 starts, showed very little in the Fairgrounds Oaks. You want to hang your hat on maybe third off the layoff, can move up. You get Spoli, this and that. Maybe plot along for a piece, but I'm not seeing a 14-point improvement because actually, if you look at the time, the number she posted as a 2-year-old, she's regressed because I always add like 1.25 points for every 3-year-old year for every month and 1.5 points for every 2-year-old month. So I feel this one has actually regressed, not even stayed the same. And Ballerina Dioro is all out. Got up in time to win the Gazelle, but has not gotten close to win the Gazelle, but has not gotten close to replicating the fig from the Demoiselle. A couple of starts prior to that. Obviously, I've always loved Pratt. I think he's the best in the country, in my eyes.
I agree.
Maybe once again, third off the layup, but you have to demand a little bit of value because he's going to take money she's going to take money because of Pratt. So once again,
Yeah, those three, I'm in the same boat. The numbers are a little light on all three of those. Quick Kick has shown some talent, certainly. But, yeah, the numbers last couple of starts. Chad Brown has Ballerina D'Oro, and as you say, Flavia Prat on board, so the connections certainly attract some attention there. But those are three that I don't have in my mix. Anthony?
Now, here's what, listen, nobody raced to the bookstore to get Andy Byers' books more than me. I'm probably one, I think, few people that have a hard copy of Picking Winners. But to me, like Drexel Hill and Quick Kick, right? They're both 30-1. Drexel Hill is supposed to be 50-1, and Quick Kick is supposed to be 30-1. They're not that close. And even though the buyer numbers might be somewhat close, I don't believe it. To me, Quick Kick deserves to be that price. But Drexel Hill is, as you said, I was shaking my head internally affirmation. That's one of the few tosses for the weekend, the two big races with size. That's a toss for me, Drexel Hill. Now, the thing about Ballerina D'Oro, two things. One is we can't play Weatherman 72 hours out, but boy, a Medaglia D'Oro gets away. But here's a question. Is a slight improvement off her Demoiselle good enough to win here? I think that it is. I think wrapping up her 2-year-old season in brilliant hands of a trainer, 2 starts foundation for this, puts Ballerina D'Oro in a very contentious spot. Now, I'll let you burst my bubble twice. Is Ballerina D'Oro going to be the third pick on the wagering when it's done?
I don't.
Because I think so, right?
I guess it's just the fact that she was all out. Like if she had won by a length and a half and going, going away fashion. I mean, she was life.
I'm going no shot. She's fifth or sixth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't think she can represent?
Clearly going to take it. I think Take Charge My Lady off of that last start is going to take some action, as will Lucara. Quiet Side gets stuck outside, but it's going to take some action, as will Simply Joking. So I think you're going to, if you like Ballerina D'Oro, you're going to get your price.
Boy, I'll tell you, her Demoiselle to me is good enough with Chad Brown, etc. But the other two to me, Drexel Hill is a complete toss, and Quick Kick is, a little bit behind that. But Ballerina D'Oro, especially when we get moisture in the racetrack, and my thing is and I've said this many times when we do the show in the summer, third career start, third off a layoff. That's the crosshairs for me. I'm expecting Ballerina D'Oro to run the race of her life, and she can supersede the 87 Demoiselle.
One of the most difficult things to do is to throw out a Chad Brown horse, especially at a price. You second guess yourself. Can I leave this horse out of the pick 4? Can I leave this horse out of the pick 5? It's Chad Brown. It's Chad Brown. It's this.
See, that's one of the areas where I'm lucky because I understand that. But as a trifecta player, it's less damning. It doesn't ruin 2 hours of my life.
Next three, I'll kick off because I like Lucara. Lucara, 5G, and Tenma. Lucara, I have liked going back to the Suncoast, the seasonal debut. And Mark Cassidy said he was disappointed when in the winner's circle after that race. He said, well, he was disappointed. He thought she was better than she showed in the Breeders' Cup, and then kind of showed that on the comeback. The Duona Dale, I thought, was a good effort behind the Queen's MG and set her up for the nice front-running win in the Ashland. And she has gotten really good reports on the workouts. I had Mike Welch from the Racing Forum on last Saturday. She had a work a week ago this past Tuesday. And Mike said it was the best work he had seen since arriving in Louisville amongst either the boys or the girls. And so Lucara, I've liked her. I was kind of on board. That helped tilt me. So I certainly like her. 5G coming out of the win in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. I think I wouldn't argue against it, but you can only pick so many. But I think also she has speed. Lucara has speed. We mentioned Simply Joking has speed. The pace may play against me a little bit with Lucara and some of these other speed horses, but I have no real knocks on 5G. I just didn't use that one. Same with Tenma coming out of the Santa Anita Oaks for Bob Baffert, who gets back to Churchill Downs this year. She's very good. I just thought others were a little more intriguing. Anthony, your thoughts on those three?
Well, I will say this. I don't Mike Welch is he's so good at it. I mean, he was the one that said that Rachel Alexander 16 years ago should have ran in the Derby. She looked so good that week. So that scares me because you would almost your default answer then, Seth, is she's going to run a career best. She's going to supersede her Ashland, which I thought was a very attractive trip. Kudos to Dylan Davis. He's obviously on center stage here with a big runner. 5G to me is important runner in here because of the running style. I need her to be part of it, to ensure an honest, 46 and change. And,
How intense is Franco going to be to press Dylan?
I think that I call it the valiant nature angle, might be before your time. And that is,
I'm sure it is.
well, 93, but he only won going one way. The stick's the one. And when you choose voluntarily, and you've won one way and you voluntarily choose not to do that, I think that leaves you open to the most questions. I've always said, like, and maybe it's just pace guy, and we'll get to Derby, you have to go. I don't think you can take the risk. It's like, just go. I have the outside. I'm going to pin you and then make the other athlete always think and react. There's no way I'm ducking in.
See, but now,
no way.
5G has won in a handy fashion before, laying third and won, broke second and won. So I don't think he needs to go to Dylan's throat lash, but at least be flanking the horse, I would say, but without an all out.
But those were turf. I'm going. I'm not leaving anything to chance. I'm on the outside. I am going with you. I think Flojo has to go as simple. You can't. It's a 14-horse field. It's that shortest run into the first turn. There's no way I'm getting bogged down. I'm going. The breather I might want to take is from the 5/8 pole to the 3/8 pole. Eventually, you got to give a horse a breather.
Maybe they both say, back him down a bit.
Well, usually, I will say this, and I'm going to use a term that it's not the right way to say. One of them usually chokes and backs out. We showed on the intro Winning Colors. Pat Day backed off on the backside and allowed Gary Stevens to lope on Winning Colors, then came charging. Well, you didn't get there. But one of them usually backs out. They take the scaredy kick. Not me. I'd never. I pushed the pedal to the metal.
Well, this might, out of the three that we're looking, the groupings of three, this appears to probably be the most interesting grouping of three. Tenma is not getting much action, from people talking, but 5 for 5 without blinkers. The one
She's
tried
a nice
to blink.
super. I think she's going to sit an extremely attractive trip.
Yes,
I think if you only follow East Coast racing, Juan Hernandez is a major player.
Great finisher.
He's in this day and age in Southern California, which is not as potent as he used to be. He might be at the top of the rung if you consider that Flavor Flav is not a Southern California-based guy anymore. He's a world-based guy. And if the Las Virgenes is real, is that the best Beyer speed figure in the race?
Well, now keep in mind, last out only a 75 Beyer. So you could say, what was that all about? But in Las Virgenes, improved in the Beyer department by 9 points. Did it while adding 4 pounds in a second. The only time she was in a second off the layoff spot. So I mean, I'm sure that's she's not going to win a 75 again.
This is the best group of three.
It absolutely is.
All right, let's move on to Take Charge, my lady. Good Cheer and Anna's Promise. Anthony, take it away.
Not to let the Take Charge lady is in my mix. I think running, all against it. In the Ashland, I don't think she'll be all against it for Ken McPeak. These connections won this race last year, but I think she has indicated in the morning that maybe Keeneland wasn't her cup of tea. And I think the Ashland, she is going to improve off of that effort. And I think she is going to be heck to pay at double-digit odds because you start to feel at some point somebody has to get lost in the wagering. And Take Charge, Milady, to me, is not going to get a lot of love. I'm getting double-digit odds. Good Cheer, she's in the mix, but she's no better than 3 or 4 others in my mind's eye. And Anna's Promise is a true long shot to me in the neighborhood of Drexel Hill. So I have a horse that I am very attracted to at 12-1, and a horse at 6-5 who I don't think warrants that morning line odds. And my whole idea is, you pick and you bet against horses that are a bad price. And I think she's going to be a terrible price.
I'm on board with you with Take Charge, Milady. I have her as my 4th choice.
Okay.
A grinding style. I think there's going to be enough pace in front of her that she'll be able to grind along for something. And obviously, Brian's going to try hard for every position. Good Share, my second choice, because you have to put the horse in the top 3, but you don't have to take 6 to 5, with a straight win bet. You include, but you just don't go crazy at that price. You just can't do it. Now, Anna's Promise. Well, I just noticed this earlier. $50,000 claim, 3 starts back. Horse has already more than earned that back, and now has a chance to win a little south of $900,000. Talk about that.
I saw Dale Romans. I didn't bring this up.
He would have given you a glare, I'm sure. He would have given you the Dale glare. It actually was the smart spot to put her in at the time. I think he was thinking she was going to be a friggin' Oaks horse just a couple of months later.
The two famous ones are, how did Knicks Go become that, and White Up Barrier? These are not the things happen. It's unimaginable. But a quick thing, I would not I want the people to have context. Good Cheer at 7-2 would start to take my interest, but that's how different I am. That's how I think there's 4 horses. It should all be 4-1.
Out of spite.
No, out of spite. I tell you, no.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, everyone.
I can't like Godolphin both days.
I see what you're doing there.
Yes, you did.
I better go before you. I'm sorry. Inside joke.
I like Take Charge My Lady in the mix.
Yes.
That Ashland I thought was a really good looking performance. Made a nice late run there. I think that sets her up well on Friday. Good Cheer I have in the mix, but I have her underneath just for what we've been talking about. I am a buyer guy. It is only a tool in the toolbox, but I agree with what you kind of hinted at earlier, or stated outright essentially, that the 91 isn't Lucara. I think of the horse that I'm tilting towards, I think is right in the same ballpark, and we're going to obviously get much better odds on Lucara. But Good Cheer, it's hard to go past, as you say, Godolphin, Brad Cox, Luis Saez, who, if folks weren't watching on Tuesday, had an insane day at Churchill Downs, undefeated runner. So they're playing things so like Anna's Promise, wouldn't be a shock to run well in the mix, but I again, there are others that I just prefer a little bit more. So let's take a look at the last 2, Bless the Broken and Quiet Side. Kevin, you're up.
Decent win on a synthetic, and while she's a little bit better bred for the main, even a slight improvement would likely leave her a bit short here. I'm just not seeing how. You go back to the dirt efforts; they're okay. I'm not seeing a big burst forward. You see 50, 57, 30, 68. It's not really getting the heart thumping. And Quiet Side heading in the right direction, shooting for the hat trick. Despite being marooned, has already been proven to be capable of utilizing her early speed to cross over from the outside. If you look back, 11 hole at Saratoga in one turn race was able to cross over for a nice second. 12 hole out of 13 in the Honeybee was able to use the speed to cross over. That could take a lot out of a horse. You got to be able to cross him over and, like Anthony said before, back him down a little bit, because if you're going to use that energy crossing over at the start, you got to give him a break at some point before the second turn. So Quiet Side, once again, it's not even so much the horses that have run a 90 or 91 that could be Good Share. It's even horses that are on the upswing. And Quiet Side, what's the expression? Put an upwards arrow alongside the speed figures. You just put an upwards arrow alongside her last 3 speed figures, heading in perfect direction.
Yeah, Bless the Broken for me is a toss, but the win last time was nice. But again, it was over the synthetic. The dirt starts weren't quite as good. But Quiet Side, out of the horses I used and didn't use, she's the one that probably just missed my use mix in here. And I did, kind of downgrade a little bit on the post position. You're right, though. She has overcome that in the past, but again, this is a little bit of a different scenario, maybe in the Kentucky Oaks, but she scares me a little bit of the horses I've used or not used, because I left her out of my mix, but I think she's very dangerous. Anthony?
I was a toss with Bless the Broken, and I only sent in superfecta picks. I think that's enough. A Quiet Side might have been my 5th horse. The issue that I see, I really do think post position for her matters, because I just think if I had to make a guess, she's going to be 6 going into the first turn. It's a bad spot for Jose. The other horses have easy trips, into that first turn. I think he's going to try and save ground and just duck in. And the best he's going to be able to do is about the middle of the pack, 6th. There's going to be too many horses in front of him.
All right, let's give our selections. Kevin, you go.
Oh, Jesus.
What, is this surprise you were supposed to give a pick?
No, I have them all written down here.
'Cause
We're
I already
get it right. I'm top 4. Simply Joking on top. Good Cheer for 2nd. Finally for 3rd.
Oh,
And Take Charge, Milady, as we all probably have for 3rd or 4th somewhere.
Anthony?
Agreement makes terrible radio and terrible television. I'm Simply Joking on top. Take Charge, Milady, Good Cheer, and Tenma.
He saw my notes. He saw my notes. He did it again.
Dan, what time did I send the picks in?
I said
Talking
mine
to our
yesterday.
producer.
Mine
Did
yesterday.
you?
Yes, I did.
I think that this is a very good renewal. Nobody should be 6-5. And we'll see where these runners are. Just remember, FYI was favored over Torpedo Anna last year. So we'll see where they go on. But I think it's a very good horse race.
For me, it's 7, 11, 10, and 2, Lacara. I like her. That was a nice performance in the Ashland. As I say, it goes back to the first start of the season at Tampa, where I thought she looked very good. We were down at Gulfstream for the Dwellna Dale, and that was a nice performance there. Set her up for the run in the Ashland. The only question mark is going to be the pace, and will it melt down? She's going to be right up there. I'll trust that, again, off of the reports on the workouts, that she'll come in and be legit. Good Cheer, 6 for 6. Hard to knock that one, what we've seen so far. If things do melt down, Take Charge, My Lady becomes very, very dangerous. And Simply Joking, lightly raced and has shown plenty of talent, and also being reported to have been working well over the past week and a half down there. So 7, 11, 10.
Like you just said, if you can get past the favorite in this race, you can get paid a little bit.
Yeah, no question about it. All right. We will
Apparently not as much as I thought.
We will take a break. When we come back, we'll shift our attention to Saturday and the Derby. Stay tuned.
Do you like free money? Well, Capital OTB gives its players plenty of opportunities to cash in. At Capital OTB, there are so many ways for horse players to receive bonus dollars by simply participating in promotions such as our bankrolls, bounty bets, online handicapping contests, and much, much more. Plus, with Capital OTB's Player Rewards program, you get actual cash back. So what are you waiting for? Log on today at CapitalOTB.com or CapitalOTBBet.com and claim your free money.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Welcome. It is the annual Capital OTB Kentucky Derby Seminar. We're going to take a look at the Derby in just a moment. I am joined by Kevin Cox, the Brooklyn Cowboy, and Anthony Mormino. We had an additional talk about the Oaks on our original airing of this, but if you're watching on Saturday morning and we're just doing the Derby, let's just get some quick thoughts overall. My quick thought on the Derby is I could point to 10 or 12 in here that if they won, I would not be absolutely shocked. I think it's a really interesting edition of the Derby this year. Your thoughts, Kevin?
Well, usually on my first draft of a Derby, I'm able to lop off maybe 5 or 6 horses, get it down to 14 where I could formulate and really do deep dives into. I put a high emphasis on post-position draws, and the way the draw played out this year, I don't think I've ever had a Derby where I was able to take off 14 of the 20 horses. I have down to 6. Not 6 that are going to run 1 through 6, but the group from which I feel the winner should come from. Because I put a high, the horses I liked all drew nicely. Now, some people say, well, you know, we don't want to be inside in the Derby. Listen, I worry about ground lost all the time. Yes, horses win from the 20 hole, obviously. But one thing I'm curious about is with Bob Baffert's Baked Beans having a couple of speedsters in there, are they going to have the track like that? Are they going to have a golden rail, or do they not want to see Double B go all the way in the big race? Do they play the track a little more fair?
Yeah.
That's something I was thinking about on the way up here.
Yeah. Anthony?
One of the things I like, Churchill's turned their Thursday to big day. I care not what the track is like this week that they're running. Seth was doing the show today because I know the track's going to change. I don't know what's going to change too, but it seems to change. Now, remember, Churchill Downs owns Colonial Downs, and the track that day for the Virginia Derby might be the single oddest surface that horses have ever run over in my lifetime. I mean, it was, you saw, who the heck can run a 133 on dirt in their debut? I mean, it's just, Dr. Fager, maybe.
I'd love to get track superintendents together and say, why do you do this on stakes days?
Right.
I'd like them to answer on the record, why do you do this on stakes days?
And I will not accept nothing.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
You know, it's almost, you could almost mathematically prove to them that it's not, just as a guy who keeps pace figures and everything. I say this all the time, no one wants to hear it, but the day Secretariat ran the race of their life, they tied 3 track records. It's like no one ever talks about that track that day. I'll give you the best example. This has never happened before, will never happen again. When they completed the 1973 season at Naira, which was like the rebuild for 68, right? Every dirt record was set in 1973. It's never happened before.
It's a good year for horses.
No, it's a good year for tractors.
They think it helps revenue.
Of course they do.
Media
it's like
and
guys at
press.
driving range are not set at the right distance, so you buy the club. I just hit that one 250. You hit it like 218, buddy. But no, we'll see. But now here's one thing that I think I'm way out of the loop with most people. I'm going to find out if I'm 1/3. I think over the course of, say, 200 days, by logic, it says to me, it can hardly ever be equal or a fair racing strip. That's almost illogical. It's like, no, how can it be balanced? There always has to be an edge. It seems to me how I come at racing, it's never, the racetrack was fair today. I doubt it. I just highly doubt it. That seems to be, threading the needle. Like, good luck with that. I think there's always an edge someplace.
But have you ever handicapped a whole entire Travis card and it's a third race? You just say, I'm done. Because all the work you've done doesn't matter because of how the track is playing out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Breeders' Cup Days, more pronounced. I'll give you a thing. There's a quick story. So boots on the ground with Seth. I got to do a 9:30 spot for him. So it's 6:30 in LA. I pull into a Taco Bell. And I think I loved Data Link in the mile or something. It was one of Shug's horses. Maybe not Data Link. And Seth goes, you're like the 5th guy that's done his shows this week. You all have, I go, that doesn't bother me so much. But now that day, inside speed on the turf was great. And Taurus. Tepin was the best horse in the race, but Taurus got the ground-saving trip on a thing and won. And a horse that I was in love with for 10 days, I dropped in a millisecond and took the horse that was going to get the perfect trip and got it. So I'm a believer.
We don't have that luxury though.
Not here, but we'll see. But I think they do things to tracks on big days. I think we could prove it. Yeah. I wouldn't care what they. I am more in your boat than Seth's boat.
Is this a good boat?
I don't know. I lose a lot, but Country House saves a lot of money. I think it's a very small group that can win the Kentucky Derby. I think it's a very large group for me. I'll be like, didn't see that coming. I have a very small group. You're saying you have it a large group to win, right?
I'm saying there's 10 or 12 that I wouldn't be shocked if they won.
Okay. I think like 4 horses can win the race. And I'll do the same thing. Buy a speed figure. And I've said this before, I think Seth used to laugh, but I think 94s have won the Kentucky Derby. The reason I say that is I have 10 horses who never won another race. They couldn't have run a 107 and never reproduced it. So that's not how athletics works. So what do you think? If journalism isn't in this, what wins the Kentucky Derby? I say 97.
Well, you're kind of alluding to it's it's going to be a 101 or a 102.
Of course it is. Can't have
So
a Derby
how can
winner get an 87.
Yeah, how can I predict that?
And they can always change it a couple of months later.
Doesn't matter. No one's watching.
All right, let me just remind there are, I think, 6 pick fives, including an all dirt pick 5, all stakes, all dirt pick 5 on Saturday. Great wagering menu, pick 4s all over the place, obviously rolling pick 3s and doubles and whatnot.
Too much.
There's
I believe what the market will bear. I don't believe in things like too much. If
so-
there's one pool gets no money in it, they'll say it was. Now, here's a question, because I'm a vertical player. So there has to be overlap on overlap on overlap. So I'm like, I would almost pay part of the ticket to sit with people that it'd take me 2 days to make up my tickets for that. It takes me a day for the Breeders' Cup, and I only bet tries.
With that amount of pick 5s, you can have races that are overlapped on 3 different pick 5s.
Yes.
And you could be toast on all of them if you're only 2 or 3 deep and you get smoked there.
Yeah, there's one in the third, one in the first, one in the third, one in the fifth, all going to overlap.
I just wonder, I mean, it always starts with you have to have an opinion and then you have to have the bankroll. I get it, but man, that's a lot of ticket writing must make the ABC machine.
I am also going to toss something else out there. There's a great Derby day, and people will be focused on that. But the Preakness Future Bowl closes on Saturday as well, 6 o'clock before the Derby goes off. So if you'd like to jump in on that, keep that in mind. And
I only brought the 2 races we're talking about. What time? I presume it's the Turf Classic is race number 11. The Derby's at 6:57, 7. It's got to be 90 minutes.
And what day is the Derby going off on?
the Derby.
Is it still Saturday?
It's so far.
Well, I
still
like
Saturday.
when they make
5:39.
so an hour and a half.
Wow, 5:39 to 6:57.
Hour and a half. And I love how when they make excuses about it, I'm like, the walkover and the field horse, it's been the same for a long time. We used to do it in 28 minutes, so it's not necessary.
What are you doing for that hour and 15 minutes?
Are you in studio?
No, I'll be out in the race book shooting the breeze with folks, and so
Maybe you get the front 9 at Capitol Hills in before the Derby. You can play 9 before the Derby.
yeah, some of those power 3s I probably could go on.
Yes, I mean,
all right.
I will say this: Denise and I are probably going next year to it, and it's going to be awful. It's just going to be awful.
Yeah, the power of positive thinking there. That's nice.
I'm going to be 62 years old. I'm a realist.
All right, let's get into it. Again, it's going to go off a little before 7 o'clock Saturday evening. The Kentucky Derby, $5 million up for grabs, 1.25 miles. We'll go over the field 3 by 3 by 3 in groups of 3, get some opinions, and then we'll give our picks at the end. Let's kick things off. Citizen Bull, Neo Equos, and Final Gambit. Kevin, kick it off.
Citizen Bull makes my first draft. Makes my 1 of 6. This horse, I could see this horse feeling like a little bit of a war emblem to me.
Stole my thunder.
Got the speed, getting overlooked a little bit. Same odds, 20-1 War Emblem. I believe it was 21-1 that day. Played the fade last time out, but has rebounded off a poor effort in the past with a win. Draws the rail for the first time, and although there appears to be a lot of speed signed on, it's not out of the realm that he can go a long way if able to shake loose early. If. That's the longest 2-letter word in the horse racing axiom. I think it's worth inclusion at 20-1. I don't know I had a discussion with John DeSilva on the drive up here, and I don't know how they're going to play with Rodriguez and Citizen Bull pace-wise, because same owners in both. They're not going to be adding each other's throat latch. Is Rodriguez going to rate a little bit? If that's so, then Citizen Bull.
Did John have an opinion?
He said they're going to go at each other as if I disagreed with him. He said nope.
And I think it's clear which one's going.
He thinks Rodriguez is more likely to go. I disagree with him there too. I think Citizen Bull, especially if that rail is golden that day, is good.
He is not working Citizen Bull like get comfy and settle off the shoulder.
I liked hearing the different point of view though.
Yes. I agree.
Being they are same ownership, it doesn't make sense to cannibalize one of them. It really doesn't. So Citizen Bull makes my first cut of 6. Neo Equos, thank you for telling me how to pronounce that name. After the last pair, doesn't appear to want the distance. And Jesus, I can't see Safi adding stamina into a horse to get him to go 1.25 miles. But for now, as a pending a scratch, there's a switch to Pratt. Maybe
Who wants no part of this mount? He's got till Friday at 9:00 to get Baeza in.
He doesn't. and my train of thought is I don't know if he's not a pump and send guy normally. Maybe this horse takes a little bit of a tuck.
He usually sits on classier animals too.
poor Flavian.
That's a compliment.
Could see a little more patience with this one, with a possible pocket trip. Whatever. It's a bomber, but makes my first cut because the adjusted speed figures say such. Here we go. Final gambit. Not just a page, but a page and a half. I stole somebody's thunder a little bit here to my right, your left. Tons to like here. Improved by 27 points last time out when winning the Jeff Ruby, and did such despite getting smacked around at the onset. That win also showed stark improvement from his first non-LASIK start to the next. There was no angle in play that day. There was no equipment change, no jock change. He did it under his own volition. So something clicked that made him move up by 27 points. It wasn't just a fluke. There was no weird, funky track condition or anything like that. Now, a lot of people are saying, it's stone cold closer. Yes, you see a lot of 9s, 10s, and 11s on his page, but he's only been an average of 6 lengths back at the quarter in all 4 starts. So he's actually been a lot closer up to the pace than you would think. And 2 of those came when getting smacked around at the beginning. It wasn't his fault. Maybe a little bit closer than you'd think. Now, he's got a turf stride. He's got a poly stride. I get it. I've seen it. But it doesn't mean he's not a dirt horse. Lone sibling won by 7 lengths when debuting in a dirt route. Not this time, won his first dirt route by more than 10 lengths. Tappet won his first dirt route by about 8 lengths. And Giants Causeway lost by a neck in a Breeders' Cup Classic to Tisnow in his only dirt route. The 433 Tomlinson figure for the distance is the highest in the field by a lot, between 57 and 294 points higher than anyone else's time. That is mammoth, absolutely mammoth. And only 2 other horses in the race have a Tommy higher than 326. So I don't care that he's done a lot of stuff on a poly. I like that because that's going to help in the odds department. I love betting prorated animals going from one surface to another. I was discussing this with Mike earlier about being battle tested. He's faced an average of 10.7 runners in each start, while the 4 favorites in this race, or the 4 lowest betting prices, have faced an average of only 6.4 runners in each start. So he's faced nearly 4.5 more runners in every race than the 4 favorites have. I like horses that are battle tested, whereas one of those other horses, if they get jerk kicked in their face or bumped a little bit, maybe they don't handle it. But he's already shown enough mettle. You're getting Cox at 20-1. You're getting overlooked a little bit, although I see a little bit of wise guy money on Seth's computer there. You're not getting 30-1. Get that out of your head. Be happy to get 20-1. Be miserable if he's 15-1. But there's plenty of speed. Plenty of speed to sit a nice pocket trip. Just he could sit a dream trip. I'm positively in love with this horse.
Anthony?
I agree. I think if you follow the game as a weekend warrior, Not This Time is the second best stallion standing in the United States behind Into Mischief. If you didn't know what the racing surfaces were, it was the most impressive race on television as a prep. What he did the final quarter of a mile was devastating. Now, I will say, if you look at Turfway that day, the only knock I have for Final Gambit is the exacta in the Jeff Ruby was last and second to last early. I don't usually like that. I like when one horse runs against the grain of the race or the track. But visually impressive, Juddmonte, distance of ground. He is, I have an orange here. He's never run on the dirt. Well, I said the same thing about Colonel John years ago, who was an offspring of Tisnow. That's all true. But if you don't think a Not This Time gets a dirt runner, right? He's a beast in here. I'll put it this way. I see little chance he doesn't run well. I mean, that's it. There's a group I'm not going through, but I thought I caught 7 at 30-1. He's not in that group. He is a beast. Citizen Bull, to me, I think he's on the engine. You took War Animal, so I guess I have to take Spend a Buck. Then you have to go. Martin Garcia is that type of jock. The works indicate you're going to go. And I will say this caveat. When Churchill Downs went out and either built or had somebody build the 20 horse stall gate, it changed. In the old days, number one couldn't run a straight line or he hit the rail. That's not the case anymore. Matter of fact, he gets space to his left. I think Citizen Bull is gone. And the other 30-1 shot is one of the tosses for me.
Citizen Bull, I'm glad you mentioned the starting gate, because I did for our social media, I went through the post positions that have won over the last 20 years. 20's won a couple of times. 1 has never won. But that plays into, there was a whole time where you just weren't going to win. Right. On television, they would show the shot out of and you were going to run into the rail. And so you had to not only negotiate horses coming over on you, but you had to come up.
You usually had to give up space.
Yeah.
Fight it.
The new gate now has changed that. So that, to me, changes the dynamics. We haven't got a win out of that last 25 years, but part of that was in that old gate. So Citizen Bull with the early speed will be interesting. Neo Equos has early speed, but I think his is not as potent, perhaps, as Citizen Bull. Final Gambit, I was telling people I talked to this week, were asking who I liked. I would go through horses I liked. To me, he was an interesting long shot, but you alluded to it. We have it, and we're taping this on Wednesday evening. I'm broadcasting, but there's already early betting. And let me just double check and see what the pool said. Almost $200,000 in the pool at this point. And Final Gambit is 18-1 right now.
Getting near that crying point.
It was 22-1 before I started talking.
Yeah.
Well, you talked for a long time.
You got some pair to say that about you.
That's the thing. When Anthony Mormino says you talked a long time, that's the dog off the meat wagon.
Hello, Kettle? Is hot there?
But,
that's it. I am the worst at that.
So
talk a dog off a meat
That's why I
wagon.
recognize it when I see it.
So Final Gambit is
top
interesting
pick.
to me. Again, live long shot, but the prices are maybe coming down a little bit there. It seems like other people think that as well. So there's the top 3. I'll take you through the next 3. Rodriguez, or I'll kick it off. Rodriguez, American Promise, and Admired Daytona. Rodriguez, I'm a buyer guy. He comes up with the triple digit. There aren't a lot of them on the pages here for these 3-year-olds. And so that triple digit, and it pairs up with, or it adds to another one earlier in the career. So I have to take a serious look there, but I do think there's going to be some pace. Now, you guys were kind of mentioning that earlier. In years where you think, oh, this is going to be a blistering pace, then somebody goes out and kind of lopes along and everybody else takes back. I can't see that happening this year. I think
not this year.
Yeah, there will be a legit pace, and Rodriguez will be part of it, but he's a live runner. So I didn't use him, but he scares me off of that win in the wood. American Promise comes in off that Virginia Derby, which, I don't know what to make of that
133
either.
for the mile.
Wayne Lucas puts a good storyline on the Derby this year. 89 years old, still gets up on the horses in the morning. So fun, but I couldn't pull the trigger there. And I do like Luxor Cafe in my mix, and Admired Daytona is another Japanese runner. But if you look down, was beaten 2 starts back by Luxor Cafe, 4 starts back by Luxor Cafe, went on to win the UAE Derby. That's what gets him in this year. Luxor Cafe got the points via the Japan Road to the Kentucky Derby. Between the two, I'm a little more Luxor Cafe. I admire Daytona. Interesting, but don't have that one in my mix. Anthony, your thoughts?
Well, Rodriguez is interesting to me because I came up with this idea a couple of years ago. I want horses that break their maidens. They get like 70 or 80s, kind of work to improve. And we have many of them in this group. Not Rodriguez, though. It wasn't his debut, but he broke his maiden getting 100. I'm less impressed by the Wood Memorial than others. And I do not think he's attacking Citizen Bull. American Promise and the 2 Japanese are 3 tosses for me.
All right.
Yes. That was the question I was going to ask you about. Rodriguez is one of my big 6 that makes the first cut. Had it all his way. Typical. Nice golden reel for Baffert. Nice. The track was playing to the horse's liking that day. We already alluded to, the common ownership between the 2 horses. Before I go on with my next horse, where do you think Rodriguez is? How far back from Citizen Bill, the bull?
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier. I think they're both going to be right up there. I think now with the common ownership, you just don't know what the instructions might be. But looking at them and looking at the workouts and whatnot,
is their best chance to win with Citizen Bull getting an easy lead or Rodriguez pressing him as an owner?
That's a good question.
I think it's the best chance is to take a swing with Rodriguez rating because that wasn't a true wire-to-wire job, on the Wood Day, and you give Citizen Bull more of a chance. Takes longer for another horse to stop pressing
from
him
the one
the
hole that they clearly are going to send Citizen Bull.
Absolutely.
So that may play into their thinking as well.
That's setting the pace in the Wood. I'm pretty sure in my high school days, I could have run. That was lazy. That you are not going to be. You run that way, you will not be sniffing the lead the way Mike Smith was brilliant. I mean, give him credit, but he's not getting that race Saturday.
No, admire Daytona as a toss. Luxor Cafe, you pointed him out. I like the versatility shown in winning on left-hand or right-hand courses. I love versatility on a fast track or one with moisture in it, underneath 3 different pilots. One of those, the Magic Man, who's making his first appearance here, I guess in about 15 years. And a rare scenario in the Derby, a horse dropping weight off a win coming into the Derby. Usually they're carrying 122 or something like that, shedding a couple of pounds. And but really, who has he been facing? I don't know. I'm usually all into the Japanese horses. Yeah. I'm usually all into them. I can't pull the trigger on either of them.
And just one odd thing, they are not talking about these 2 the way they spoke of Forever Young.
Right.
So these are, to me, it's apples and oranges. It's like,
but for people who don't follow every day, the Japanese runners have really made an impact worldwide the past, 2 years, at least 3 years going back.
So not only was Sunday Silence better on the racetrack, better in the barn.
Yeah. That
he changed the whole makeup
dynamic over there. Yeah, no question about it. All right, the next 3, we will kick off with Luxor Cafe, Journalism, and Burnham Square. Anthony?
A toss with the Japanese runner for me. Journalism, he's in the group. He's by Curlin. These 9 and 10 furlong dirt races in America, Curlin's always get an extra look for me. The Beyer speed figures are scintillating. The way he won the Santa Anita Derby, it might be a regression on figures. It's an improvement on style points for me. Burnham Square, there's 2 horses maybe in this race. One is in every single race, an improving Beyer speed figure, him and Baeza. But I'm an anti-bluegrass. I'm against the race, I should say that. And that, for better or for worse for me, that's kind of where I usually plant the flag because you can't like them all. And I'm against the bluegrass. So for me, the race, journalism is what is he now? If he goes
journalism 4-1.
Okay, like to me, I don't think journalism deserves to be 3-1 in this. He deserves to be the favorite, but I think the favorite should be like one of those years with Northern Southern Saint was 5-1 in the chalk. That's where I feel. I think journalism is in the group of 4 for me that I think can win the race. I think he's.
So yours are just 4.
Just 4.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, because it's. Well, we'll just get on to. I just am like I think there's 8 horses in here that the rest of their career is not going to look that shiny.
Right. And to defer a little time because I flap my gums a lot about Final Gambit over there. I won't talk about Luxor Cafe. I already mentioned the points. Journalism makes my pick 6. Impossible to knock. He has the classic type running style of so many champions we've seen through the years. Makes his 3rd start off the bench. And while he may be sitting on a tremendous effort, he's only faced 4 runners in 4 of 5 career starts. Now, listen, I sang the same song with Justify, but you make your own luck also. You get yourself in a position where you're not getting kickback. It always was, what if he gets kickback? Or what if this? Or what if that? But in the what if department, what if somebody comes across of journalism and, smacks into him a little bit or this? Not that you were hoping.
He's already had that.
He has
showed
one time. He
moxie.
He did. But I like my horses a little more battle tested. But yet I'm putting him third because I can't leave him out.
One thing I want to say about short fields as the West Coast bias guy in this network for years, it seems counterintuitive, but goofiness in short fields seems to happen more times
You ain't kidding.
than larger fields, whether it's the jockeys all bunching up, like we're going to have spread outness. Now, there might be one or two horses in the Derby that get like a rough trip. We'll say, well, that's 2 out of 20. That's only 10%. But in a 5-horse field, it's amazing through the years, because obviously I've seen a lot of stake races in Southern California with 5 horses in it. And I do think it's mostly the jockeys. No one wants to set them down, separated. So they're all right next to each other, just waiting for junk to happen. It amazed me. I remember when Arrogate came for the Travers, he was the same thing. He'd come out, he had never run in a stakes race. He was beating 4 or 5 horses. And then, faces 13 in the Travers and boom. But I see what you're saying. But to me, short fields, it seems like you'd be like, well, pick a lane, any lane you want. But stuff happens in short fields. You're like, what are they doing? Like, I have to say, Umberto Rispoli, it's the same thing. How do you get that trip in the Santa Anita Derby? It's a lot of acreage out there. But it happens.
And Burnham Square, upwards arrow theory, once again, getting better and better. Running style would benefit from any sort of pace duel. Overcame some traffic to lose by less than a length at 18-1, and his only start here. Tell everybody at home, pay attention to horses with good experience over the track.
I like Luxor Cafe, have that one in my mix. Again, we don't know what he was facing, and I don't think he is a forever young necessarily. That was a very special, still is a very special runner. But I watched on replay the last race in Japan. He powers away from that field. It was a good-looking performance. So I have him in my mix. Journalism is the horse to beat on the numbers, clearly. I tend to agree with you, though, with the 5-horse fields. And he did get in trouble and overcome it. And I also agree with you, Anthony, that watching races over my life, the number of times that a 4 or 5-horse field, there's something that's, how did that happen in that? But I think it's all, the flip side is with 20 horses, you get in trouble like that, and it's a little tougher to overcome. I'm not saying that's going to happen or taking anything really away from the 4 or the 5-horse field. I'm just saying I think there is a logistic kind of a difference here in a 20-horse field that might make it a little bit tougher to get it done for journalism. But again, I think on the numbers, he's the one to beat. And Burnham Square, I have very high in my mix. I thought the Bluegrass, to me, was visually impressive. I thought it was a solid numbers, compared, relatively speaking, to this group. Ian Wilkes maybe has the horse ready and primed for a good effort in the Derby. And so these 3 are all logical players in and amongst.
Like I said, funny. I'm almost anticipating that journalism gets a perfect trip.
I'm not saying he can't.
I mean, it just seems like there's going to be 4 that clear out, and he's got such good tactical speed. I'll get right where I want to get into that first turn. I'll let the next 4 furlongs unfold, and then it'll be giddy up.
And anybody that clears him from the outside is going to clear him probably by about 2 lengths, where it's not going to affect him too much, possibly, right?
Yes.
So once again, a la Justify, he'll make his own. He could make his own trip, which
I mean,
it could be a tour de force if that happens, and
that's the
they're
problem.
cooking in front of him.
I mean, the first 20 feet to me, is the most important for journalism.
Next 3, Grande, Flying Mohawk, East Avenue. Kevin?
Grande is another one who's improving with each passing start. Reunited with Johnny B. Dylan rode the horse in last start, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but it was that's what they call a one-off. It was, even if he would have won the race, Johnny would have gotten the horse back. So don't feel too bad for Dylan. He could cash a nice check that day. Can't argue with those including, but not sure how he reverses the table on Rodriguez, who I rank a little bit higher. Flying Mohawk, the dirt pedigree is substantially weaker than that of the turf and poly, and those numbers are pretty awful as well. Have a bit of a lazy morning line with a few here, as he should be every bit of 50-1. East Avenue will be my second choice. Very interesting horse here. We always like to be forgiving of pre and post layoff running lines. I tell this to my readers. It's a good way to get value, be a little bit forgiving, as perhaps something would have missed in the former, which it did in the Breeders' Cup with this one. and perhaps they weren't 100 fully geared up for the comebacker. It's a good way to get some inflated odds. By drawing lines through those two efforts, he's a no shy being 3 for 3. May not be able to cross over to the lead, but his early foot should be enough to get him in a good striking position. Plus, for those Saratoga fans, East Avenue, a little Saratoga reference there. But I think Manny's got a live one here.
Grande is the one in this group that just misses my mix. I was really thinking of putting Grande in, and as I say, just missed when I eventually parsed out my plays here. But I'm scared of Grande. I thought it was a nice run in the Wood in the first start in a stakes race. Good performance behind Rodriguez, who comes up with the triple digit. This one gets a solid 97 on progressing numbers. It's Pletcher, Rapoli, Velasquez. Grande scares me a little bit. Flying Mohawk, I like Flying Mohawk in the Jeff Ruby, and I thought he ran very well there to be second, but tries dirt for the first time, and I just couldn't pull that one in the mix on the whole scenario. East Avenue, you weren't getting your odds on Final Gambit, but I will say, and again, we're recording this on Wednesday night, so there are plenty of betting will go through. If you're watching a replay of this on Saturday morning, you may have a better idea. There'll be plenty more betting. But at this point on Saturday or on Wednesday night, 35-1 on East Avenue, which I find incredible because I think he did rebound after those two poor efforts, the end of last season, start of this season. He got back to the East Avenue of, earlier in the career. And so to me, I think he's live and interesting, and that price is just kind of crazy at this point. But Grande, as I say, just misses. East Avenue interesting. Flying Mohawk out for me. Anthony?
I would take a head-to-head bet taking odds. I'll take Grande, even though Andy Beyer wants to shame us all into calling it Grand, over Rodriguez. I think this, to me, is the classic pace makes the race. I'm getting reversal of fortunes. Flying Mohawk would be one of my 50-1 shots. Blinkers off after running the exacta in the Jeff Ruby. Intriguing to me. And as I said, remembering the one thing about Final Gambit is the horses 11th and 12th ended up being first and second. East Avenue, I think Brendan Walsh, I would actually believe him if he let me ask him. I think when they put the blinkers on, and they had terrific success without them, it's not usually a direction you go. I think East Avenue is going to be a major player in this race. I think he's going to be on the engine. I do. I know I said I'm against the bluegrass, but I think East Avenue is going to be a big effect on this race and how it's run. I think he's the one most apt, not Rodriguez. He's the one most apt to make Citizen Bull not have a cushion.
We could have a scenario going into the first turn of possibly 4 horses within a length and a half of each other right there.
And that's what we should have. That's what I'm thinking, where journalism gets to sit almost a perfect trip.
Yeah.
Which is not my, I'm trying to be objective. I see it exactly what you just said, that, space opens up just other people's energy. There's no one around. 4 of them just go out from your left and your right. All of a sudden they all go. You find yourself, I'm on the elevator by myself.
And in that scenario, it would need another horse to have a race of his lifetime to beat journalism.
That's
in
correct.
That scenario, nobody on
and I have that horse. We'll get to it.
Nobody on paper beating journalism in that scenario.
That's how I most see the race being run. It's just what you said.
Sure.
The 4 horses going at it. He gets a good position, etc. But we'll move on.
Publisher, Tistastic, Render Judgment. I'll kick things off here.
Yes.
Publisher and Tistastic, a couple of Asmussen runners. Publisher's, to me, is interesting. Again, he's one of those horses that if the horse won the race, I wouldn't be shocked. The notable thing about him, he's a maiden in the Kentucky Derby, but he got enough points to get in. The good second in the Arkansas Derby that played into Sandman. Sandman got the perfect scenario, but it looks like there may be some pace in the Derby as well. And so Publisher to me is very interesting. I Rod Ortiz on board for Asmussen. Tistastic comes in off of a win in the Louisiana Derby for Asmussen. And we mentioned this earlier. There was a day where I would have written, I think a lot of people would have written off a horse in the Derby, having made their last start on the 22nd of March. But it's a completely different time now. And this one, given what trainers like to do, it's probably a great layoff for Asmussen. But I do know I was on the radio this morning with Steve Bick, and he had talked to Steve Asmussen within the past few days on the radio. And he's been talking to Asmussen fairly regularly and getting his lock of the week, one of the Asmussen horses, which have done pretty well on the radio. And he made Tistastic his lock of the week. He says he's in love with the way Asmussen himself, in love with the way the horse is coming up to the race. So I didn't use the horse, but on that, I thought interesting. Render Judgment to me is, it kind of sneaks in off the AE list when scratches. And originally they weren't going, and then when scratches got them in, they said, we are going. Those kind of scenarios never throw me. So I do not have that one in the mix. Anthony, your thoughts?
I think it'd be great when Steve Asmussen gets off the bagel with the donut guy. That's what I'm seeking. Took a while, but thank you. I knew in the middle of the stretch, Publisher was going to be the wise guy horse. I will say this. It was, and Steve Chris mentioned it on the DR. When you're teaching pace makes the race, that's me. The Arkansas Derby was a perfect example. And I think part of that could replicate itself that you alluded to, Seth. Here's the difference. In this Derby, I think there's a second wave of horses that are appreciably better than the second wave of horses in the Arkansas Derby. I think there's a group in here, 2 or 3, that will be able to take better advantage than a Stone Closer when the 110 and 4 collapses. And there's like 3 of them sitting there going, we're on center stage now. And then the closers, the final gamut, they have to run down kind of better horses who might be fatigued if they stay too close to the hot pace, etc. But Publisher, to me, stopped being the wise guy. Tistastic, I'm against the Louisiana Derby, like I said, etc. And Render Judgment has improved off of the blinkers, but I said I'm against the Bluegrass, and I have no idea about the Virginia Derby, so that's a toss for me.
Publisher's amazing. They had blinkers last time out, hoping for speed, and they got a good end result with the placing, but there was no speed shown that day. So I don't know what kind of blinker setup they had there. If they shave a little, if it was a half cup and they shave it off to a cheetah now, so he could show a little more early foot. But I'm not jamming on him. I'm on board with you.
Quick question: What is Publisher? Because he was going to be the wise guy horse.
Publisher,
he was 30-1.
31-1.
All right, so he's still there. So he's not the wise guy horse.
Tistastic. I'm not into that Louisiana Derby at all. Not at all. And Render Judgment. Sometimes you look at a horse like Render Judgment, and you find yourself saying, "Where the hell did he get his points to get in this race?" Well, and you're like, "Oh, the Virginia Derby, which is still ungraded because it's so damn new."
Yeah, but they own the racetrack.
I mean,
it helps.
What?
It's the closest thing to nepotism we have. It's your race, your rules.
I'm like, how the hell did he get his points, man? But
second in the Virginia Derby, Aaron, but Baeza, not so fast.
Yeah,
we'll get to him in a little bit. I'm sure we'll have to touch on him. But I mean, if you want to make a bet on who's going to be the longest shot in the field, it'll probably be Render Judgment.
All right, let's look at the next 3, which includes the fun Story Horse and Coal Battle, Sandman, the winner of the Arkansas Derby, and Sovereignty, second last time out in the Florida Derby. Anthony, take it away.
The one thing for Coal Battle is, and I'm not so sure this really, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. He was, it was such an oddly run race that I would prefer to go back to the Rebel and the Smarty Jones, which I'm sure Coal Battle would prefer also. So for me, the 2 oddest races are the Virginia Derby and the Arkansas Derby for 2 dramatically different reasons. I think Coal Battle is like a 3rd-tier type runner in this race. I think we've seen the best of him. I'm not expecting another breakthrough element going up. Sandman, to me, like I said, the Arkansas Derby was a classic example of strong pace, 110 and 1, and the horses in the back of the pack become the exacta, and a maiden runs second. I thought a non-threatening second. And I'll just let the coat out of the bag is that the way that I look at races all the time is that I expect Sovereignty to run like an 88 or higher, in the hands of Bill Mott. Third race of the season. I expected a regression in the Florida Derby. To me, it was a better race than he got with the new jock. Junior's back on. I like him very much. And Into Mischief, he already had Authentic, so it's he was a one-turn horse, but he's become a stallion. And as I said, if 108 wins this, I might be out. But I think maybe 101 will win it. And I find it hard. I cannot envision Sovereignty in the hands of Bill Mott running poorly in here. I expect him to run. I mean, we'll get to it. He's my top pick. And I was told before I came down here, Seth, I was crying when I saw the morning line, but I heard maybe 10-1.
Sovereignty is currently 11-1.
My birthday's coming early because 5-1 was ridiculously bad. I was hoping for about 8. So anything north of 10. This is just simple thing. It's like I said, I probably say it once a day at Saratoga, whether it's the debut, muscle regression, and then you move forward. And in the hands of Bill Mott, I couldn't imagine better hands. I cannot see Sovereignty running poorly unless there's an incident. And at 11-1, I like horses that I can't see running poorly in this. And I'm outside. I shouldn't face much.
Well, I'll go backwards from 18 to 16 with Sovereignty is.
And I just want to say one thing. I'm following journalism the whole way. That's me. If I'm Junior, find him and just track him.
Absolutely. And what you look at is 18 hole. You like to see, well, how has he done? Breaking from the 10 hole out of 10 horses in a second. Won a race from breaking from the outside, the 9 hole, going 2 turns. And did that over the track, by the way.
It was a very nice 2-year-old race. That's sweet.
A decent fourth at 11-1 in the debut when breaking from the outside. So the horse has experience in doing that, and makes the third start off the bench. So, like you said, could be sitting on a big effort.
Which just what the street sense was the third race of his career. I mean, just there's method to some of the madness.
Right. Sandman, obviously with that suicidal pace that of all people, Johnny B was a part of that day, right? To cut that fraction,
he was the outside, yep.
Yeah, it set up perfectly for him.
But he seemed to be the reasonable horse. It was the inside horse. I thought that was what are you doing? Like 20, was he the longest shot on the board?
Yeah.
And he just kept on keeping on.
That was quite bizarre. Now, Cold Battle, you look at the last start and you could take a pen and say, why? Where'd that come from? But now the trainer, an elder statesman, it doesn't seem like the kind of guy to make excuses, but he said afterwards, damn it, I wish I had one more work in the horse. He needed one more work.
I remember that, yeah.
And that's a little bit of a tell. Everybody has it. There are professional excuse makers. That trainer doesn't strike me as one of them.
No.
I don't think he needs to
make an excuse. He's ever had a mic in front of him.
So if you want to say, well, maybe the horse wasn't completely tight, is it enough to come back and win? Like you said, another reburst forward? I don't know, but maybe enough to make a little bit of noise there.
Yeah, Cold Battle. When I set this up, I said story horse because of Lonnie Briley. One of the old hard boot trainers out there, and gets a good horse like this. And boy, those 2 early stakes down at Oaklawn, and the Smarty Jones the Smarty Jones and Rebel at Oaklawn, but the Springboard Mile at Remington to end the 2-year-old season. So he put all those together. And then the third in the Arkansas Derby, I thought was okay. Maybe one to build on. I couldn't pull the trigger on him off of that effort, but I again, another one of the horses that wouldn't shock me, and he'd be a great story. Not only win. I think if that one comes in the money for Lonnie Briley, that'll be a lot of fun. Sandman is in my mix. I like the Arkansas Derby, but again, the pace scenario fell right into Sandman's lap. I think there's going to be a good pace again on Saturday. Now, I put him down in the bottom of my mix, however. I don't know whether it's going to set up quite as well. And also, if you watch that stretch run, he gets a little wonky late in the stretch. I wasn't totally thrilled with that, but I think for me, I've had to throw Sandman in the mix. And Sovereignty, I'm with Anthony. I thought, the progression this year, the Fountain of Youth victory, I thought the second in the Florida Derby has this horse set up very well for Saturday. It is Bill Mott, Junior Alvarado back on board. To me, Sovereignty is very, very interesting on Saturday. And again, as we take this on Wednesday, he's 11-1. I found that the 5-1 to me looked about right. I thought he'd be maybe the second or third choice. The 11-1, it could definitely be the post position. But to me, that was kind of a shock, and we'll see how it lines up by the time we look at this race.
I feel it's starting to shape up. 20 horses, 5 that are hopelessly have no shot, 5 front runners, 5 mids, and 5 stone cold closers, give or take. It's really
it's very well thought.
It's really defined by equally running styles and eliminate a handful that have no shot. So you might see multiple moves in the race. The 4 go sending, the mids making their shot, and then this could be aside from journalism getting dream trip, this could be a wild top of the stretch.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun edition of the race. All right, let's take a look at the last 3. Everybody took a look at that. So that was the last one up. Chunk of Gold, Owen Almighty, and on the AE list, Baeza. You mentioned it earlier, Anthony. We will know if you're watching a replay of this on Saturday, you'll already know. But as far as tonight, Wednesday night, Baeza will know Friday morning at 9 a.m. That's the last scratch time that will allow Baeza to get in from the AE list. So we'll know by Friday at 9 a.m. whether Baeza
forever going forward to be known as the Rich Strike time.
See if he makes the T-shirt.
Greatest T-shirt ever. I am toss rule changer. I think they will change the rules because of Baeza. If he doesn't get in, if he gets in quieter, they'll change the rules. But if he gets excluded from this group, it'll be loud when they change the rules.
When I first heard the rule, for folks who aren't familiar, he's not in because there was a rule this year that races of 5 or less had their points cut in half, was it? They were reduced.
3/4?
Reduced by
3/4. Didn't the winner get 75?
It might have been 25% of it's reduced one amount and 50% for another. By the way, I'm toss, and I want Baeza to make the race because I want him to take money.
And I could pick 3 horses out that I would prefer to be scratched out.
Yes, I want Baeza to make it because if he makes it, he's not going to be 12-1. He's going to be bet because everyone's talking about him on
his father
social
takes
media.
The mount, and
right. And to be honest with you, I disagree. There's an old expression: you play stickball in Canarsie, you better know Brooklyn rules. Everybody knew the rules going in beforehand. If the horse was 30-1 in the same situation, nobody would care. But because he was very impressive last time out, I
agree that what I never understood is why a trainer just throw a bum in. I hate to be disparaging, but
I couldn't figure that
out. I'll rig the game my way then.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. You told me the rules ahead of time. All right, John Shares, find your slowest 3-year-old in the race, make it like a workout, and we're done.
Well, maybe they didn't think it would come to this.
Well, that's bad planning.
Well, then
I think it a midnight run. So you didn't think the gangster was going to catch you? Well, that's bad planning.
Don't get me started on midnight run.
One of the greatest movies ever.
Hey, hop a long case at each. I hope the horse gets in, and I'm against the rule change. I think it's fine the way it is. I do think some of these other races, like
the way it is the new way it is. It was the way it is the new way it is. They changed to get here. I like the old way.
I do think if they want to reduce points, like for the Virginia Derby, please, by all means, after this year.
They own the race. They own the track.
Midnight Run, that's the Charles Grodin, right? Who was the
De Niro.
Okay. That's what I was thinking, but it wasn't. Charles Grodin and De Niro weren't coming together for me exactly. Another story horse, Chunk of Gold. You look up into here. Oh, they bought him for $2,500, and here he is in the Derby in the fifth career
$50,000.
Fifth career start.
Mayful. Is he even officially 3 yet?
No. Wait, it's going to be May 3rd. What are they?
So he adds another story, and he was second in the Risen Star and second in the Louisiana Derby. So I'm not using him, but like I say, fun story if he gets it done. Owen Almighty, how do you pull the trigger when Brian Lynch goes into the Tampa Bay Derby? He says, even if we win, we're not going to the Derby. We're going to the Pate Mile. He comes out of the Tampa Bay Derby.
Sound like anybody's top pick?
Saying, we're not going to the We're not going to the Tampa Bay Derby.
Your trainer doesn't want to go.
A year later, he's yigging and yagging about my Derby pick, who finished mid-pack, mind you, last year.
What does that pay? I'm confused by mid-pack.
But then they get the points in the Tampa Bay Derby, and they kind of change up. They come out of the bluegrass. Now they're still saying but and I get it when your connections and it may be your only chance to get to the Derby. You have enough points. I get it, but I can't pull the trigger.
Maybe the owners of Baeza pay them $100,000 to scratch.
And Baeza, if he gets in, is going to be very interesting because, boy, you talk about a blue hen mayor. This Puka, she produced Maj, winner of the Derby. She produced Dornoch, winner of the Belmont Stakes, and Baeza is destined to have a pretty good career. But you put those on your resume, you're all right if you got the Triple Crown race. So Baeza, be interesting if he gets in. I didn't use any of those,
By the
however.
way, Triple Crown winning stallions are usually the worst in the world. They usually end up in Turkey or some other place.
Oh yeah,
or ended up someplace.
But you still walked away with $3 million or whatever it is. So all right, let's give our select.
Before you do that, you used the phrase "getting in," and you mentioned Smarty Jones before. So I have to ask for the record: Smarty Jones, Hall of Famer?
No.
I say no. Also,
I'm a voter. I didn't vote for him, and I looked at that and I voted for. I could have voted for everybody. Everybody had a great record, but that no human got in. That is a whole different.
Just wanted to know what you guys thought. That's all.
Because people on social media made the great
Best
point.
horse he beat.
If he gets in, how do the other two legs of the Triple Crown win? I mean, and people were saying, "Oh, but he brought so much attention to the."
No,
that's not the criteria.
See, this is
that's
just
what Popoli is for.
The whole thing that it has gotten to for numerous reasons is the vast majority of voters only follow 4 days. There's no writers anymore. No one has a full-time job covering the sport. I've always said I could means test out 90% of the voters. There's no way they would pass my test. There's no way. Because when you vote for Smarty Jones, like Seth and I had this, I think for Seth, the Rubicon was Ghost Sapper.
Yeah, and I've had to change my thinking.
He had to cross the
reality
Rubicon
of it.
Before he was like, he's just a guy. I go, Seth, he's the best horse since Spectacular Bid. There's no guidelines to that. It said that. But Seth was, based on our age, the old school. He's like, Anthony only ran 15 times, didn't run the Triple Crown, a lot of allowance races. I go, that's it. Now this is where we are.
Yeah,
best horse he beat was Lionheart.
Different.
You kidding me?
So the bar is now.
But here's the thing: he won 2 races. Both did not stand up the test of time, but people will be like, "Oh yeah."
No, it's funny this year, certainly. All right, let's give our selections. Anthony, kick it off.
I love Sovereignty in this race. I find it hard to believe he's going to run poorly coming out of this barn. I love the pedigree. I love the effort in the Florida Derby. The buyers say he regressed, but boy, I'll tell you, he didn't lose any ground in the stretch in a race that he's supposed to regress for me. So I love it. I think I followed journalism around the racetrack, and I hope I beat him on the wire. Journalism is is that
Third.
okay? Yeah, okay. I'm looking at the Oaks one because they're on top. But I have journalism who I think is going to be a favorite that gets a dream trip, and that's hard for me to swallow. And Citizen Ball, I'm just thinking the original line was More Emblem. I'm now down to 1985 and Spend a Buck. I think he's on the engine. He goes. If Martin Garcia can get a breather for about 2 furlongs, I think he's going to be heck to pay in the stretch. So obviously Into Mischief is all over me. But I like Sovereignty very much so. And I like the fact that he's way up from 5 to 1.
I thought from the way you were talking about Final Gambit, he might have made the top 3. I guess
he's 4th.
Okay.
But dude, I always say, like, to me, like, because in this race, I'm also super effective. But to me, there's a small group of 3 or 4 I think can win, and there's another group that, like, Final Gambit is in the next group. I think, complete superfectas. I just don't know if winning the race is in that group.
And I agree with what you said earlier. I think the only thing that prevents him from giving a crackerjack performance is a nightmare trip. Yeah. I think if he gets a clean trip, he's going to run a big race. So Final Gambit. Oh, should I read all my points again? No, I'm going to pass on that. Final Gambit. I'm extremely confident. I don't say that about too many derbies because it's really not my favorite race. I mean, because it's such a difficult race. You know,
I want to say, and that's why bad horses win it.
Yeah.
And by bad, I define them, you never win again.
Right. So Final Game was my top choice, and then East Avenue is my second selection. Very, very, very interesting horse. I think I would not be surprised. Don't forget, Manny Franco is one of the strongest finishers in the country. He's got one of the best lefts in the country. He's the guy you want in that last 16th of a mile. Third choice is actually no. I beg your pardon. Yeah, East Avenue is my second choice. Third choice is Journalism, for obvious reasons, and New York Post, possibly if Pratt rates the horse, gets fourth or whatever. I mean, Pratt might be thinking about other things if he's stuck riding this horse, but we'll see. So, Final Gambit right now is what the hell? It's like 18-1, I believe.
Final Gambit is 18-1. Yeah.
So you're getting a bad price, I'm getting a good price. That's how I like to play the game.
Well, and we were talking about the Wise Guy horse before. Maybe
it's Final Gambit. It's been determined. It's Final Gambit.
Oh,
yeah, it's not publisher. It's Final Gambit.
For me, 18, 9, and 8, as you see on the screen, and I have 17 and 7 underneath. I too like Sovereignty, and I'm right in the same boat. I think the setup, third start back, and that win to start the season. That fountain of youth. I mean, go back and watch that. River Thames, who's a nice runner in his own right. Mid-stretch, you had to think River Thames has this. And it was just a crazy closing kick.
Which, by the way, that's the short stretch.
Exactly. That got up. So then, you mentioned the regression, but it was a good race.
Good race. I agree.
But coming off of that big effort, it just could not catch Japan Street, but I think sets up very well for Saturday afternoon. So we'll put that one on top. Second spot, I'm going to use Burnham Square. I really debated underneath. Journalism's the horse to beat. There are other horses I like, but Burnham Square, I did like the Bluegrass. I thought it was visually impressive. It was a solid number, again, relative to this bunch for the most part. Journalism with the 2 triple digits is the horse to beat. I do use the buyers, and you look at this page, there are not a lot of triple digits. So Journalism comes in with those 2 wins, and they are impressive, certainly. Sandman, I like. Luxor Cafe, I'll have in the mix somehow. So that's my
now you want to hear
rundown.
You want to hear something very funny? If I had to pick a horse to run last, it would be my third place horse. Citizen Bull either just is seen with his jockey standing up, coming down the lane, because
in pace scenarios, that's how it works out.
Did you really think he'll finish third, or did you want to put him in your top 3? Like I said, I liked him because in case it happens, we could say, hey, we were on him a little bit.
Well, because I fear the spend a buck War Emblem moment that just nothing materializes. But the other thing is he runs last. Now here's a question for you: in this century, which trainer and which owner have run last the most times? You're not going to believe it.
I can tell you which handicapper has.
No one's.
Which owner?
Charlie Winningham.
He's been dead this century. It's not even
this century. Oh, I thought you were talking about.
No, because Charlie only ran about 4 of them and he won 2.
Yeah, okay.
Todd Pletcher has finished last like 4 or 5 times. How about this name for owner? Michael Tabor has finished last 3 times.
Well, they would often have three entries in a race, right?
My point is, what they really have is horses that have no business even being there. Now, what's funny is we might have, I haven't looked it up long enough, we might have the first time ever that a last place runner in the Derby might be a champion the next year. That Juddmonte horse that won the allowance the other day at Keeneland, just to watch?
Oh, just a touch.
Just a touch. This I can't believe. Why would you be heading for the Met Mile with those monsters waiting for you off 2 allowance races? He only ran once after the Derby, the Iowa Derby. Then he laid off and had the 2 allowance. But he ran last. Juddmonte ran last in the Derby last year, and this horse might be a beast, but that wouldn't be a spot I'd go for.
Just before we wrapped it up, you've got the bankroll coming up. Oaks Day, you have 500 to play on a pick 5. You have 2,000 remaining after that to play Derby Day.
I'll be posting little videos for my bets as much as I can speak in 90 seconds or whatever with these types of bets, but I have to do $300 in bets on races 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 500 on the big race, and then 500 on the pick 5 the day before.
Seth doesn't let me count Mandaloon because he says even though he's put up after, I don't get credit as it. But my ROI of the Derby is about $5
For all your derbies.
working for Capital.
I guess you can't count Mandaloon, but still, it's pretty impressive.
That was a tough at 32-1 to have a cheater beat. You know,
Are you already thinking about your Saratoga ROI, or
always? I think about it every day. Now, here's a funny thing. All of a sudden, the conversation on Twitter or X is that what we do, it's not about picking winners. It's about just give out information. I'm like, where? I wasn't at that meeting that we changed that rules. It's like,
I haven't read that.
Oh my goodness. They're like, Scott Shapiro put out a thing. What we do, which should it be like? You just want to get, or you want winners? And I'm like, that's not it. There's one dimension, this job, etc. Now, I have to ask you, because we like the same horse. Are you men's and men's with Sovereignty, or are you?
I like.
I'm amped up.
I like.
Okay, so we're the same. I'm amped
I've liked them for a while now.
Okay.
Last couple of weeks, I've been kind of leaning into that. Just before we go, because we've talked the handicapping, and we always say handicapping's part of it, but the other side of the coin is the betting.
My favorite part.
So I'll let you talk in your own, betting as opposed to the bankroll. But Anthony, let's start with you because you've already talked about it a little bit. I know you do the pyramids on the trifecta.
The part about the Derby that I love, where everybody else gets excited, isn't what everybody else gets the betting. And I always wonder, the people at Churchill Downs, they get paid extra if they say the number it's running. They can't seem to say the Kentucky Derby without saying 151. Like, stop. To me, it's Breeders' Cup is an excellent weekend, even though this guy didn't even recognize me in the players' booth at Santa Anita 2 years ago. But it's such a unique race because of the 20 horses. And I'm a vertical player. I don't know how you guys get through horizontals on a day like today. It wouldn't work for me. But the horizontal, this is my rule of thumb. I'm going to take the 2 horses in this year. I'm getting a break at 11 on. I'm going to key Journalism and Sovereignty. If they do not run either first or second, one of those 2, I will tear up every ticket because I think you have to. I don't have enough money to bet. And then I'm going to play in my trifecta. I'm going to play the all button because of the nature of the race. You get paid. The statistics back it up. And unfortunately, and we all know on Derby and Oaks Day, there's no 10-cent superfecta, but it's a once-a-year race. You have your bankroll. And as a friend of mine told me 30 years ago about supers, the only way you keep your sanity is by having a bankroll to bet all. So in the superfectas, mine will be 2 by, say, 7, 10, and then whatever the all button is, and then reverse first or second. But that's my rule of thumb. My picks, I have to handicap well, and then I have to wager well. And like I said, it's a once-a-year thing. My wife would cringe, but she knows it's a one. Like you just save. It's the best betting thing of the year for one race. That's
so. What are your favorite plays on a day like this?
Well, in order to bet it's hard to even bet a pick 4 because there are so many races on Derby Day. I would say within the last 5 races leading up to the Derby, I may only have about 10 to 12 horses in all 5 races that I could confidently eliminate.
Exactly.
So when I'm doing the bankroll bets, but I'm compelled to dive into the formulator stats and I'll use like the 3 top trainer stats formulator wise in the rolling pick 3s just to have a little bit of action. That's how I hit it with the bankroll team a couple of years ago. It's a lot of work. To formulate 10 horses in a race can take me 30 to 40 minutes, and I got to do that 5 times, and then for Oaks Day also. But now, when it comes to betting a race individually, this is a rare Derby where I feel I'm going to send it in on my own. And when I make the bet for the bankroll team, they might be surprised that I might say put a win bet on Journalism to get back the $500 investment.
Yes.
For example, they might say, well, you touted this horse up to the friggin' moon, final camp out. I might do other things. Because my train of thought is, I'll bet a win bet to get back the $500 on the sensible figures play, which would be Journalism. And then, so let's say he's 4-1. That would be 100. Perfect. That would be 100 to win. That would get back to 5. Then that allows me to use Final Gambit and maybe a couple others over the top choice with themselves and the other ones. And then you can go all in the last leg. So I don't always bet. if you see, let's say that's a queer bet, you're betting that horse. That's a protected bet to get back to $500 for the team. I'll save the fun stuff for the supers and tries.
Right.
I reverse it.
Well, the other thought, not only the fun bet, it's if Sovereignty wins and pays $22, mathematically, I have to, that goes a long way to my exotic play, but it also protects my sanity. You can't work on something for hours, be right, and not get paid. I've said this many times on the show. The horse goes by and pays $6. I don't give it a second thought. I look up and a horse that I like paid $18. That's going to rock my world. So when you like horses that I like, a win bet goes a long way if you're right. Because I have a feeling. I'm supposed to get wiped out if my handicapping is terrible. I believe in that. But my handicapping is sharp, really sharp, you get all the money. And when it's kind of sharp, Sovereignty winning will basically mean that I'm probably not going to get hurt in the exotics because he's going to bring back at 11-1 or 12-1, which he wouldn't do at 3-1 or 5-1, what journalism would do. And in the long run, it's worked for me personally, and it protects your sanity. But I tell people all the time, in normal races, the horse is 6-1. You have to have a win bet. I know this has become the era of exotic wagering, but if it's 6-1 and you cash and it's $14, unless you're a maniac, that should really protect a large percentage of your losing thoughts in the exotics and allows you to move forward mentally and financially.
That journalism will be a protection bet. I will not hit a big superfecta or triple if he wins. He would likely be solely a protection bet for the 500 for that race.
Makes all the sense in the world.
And you made a great point. I'm glad you said that because I was going to talk a little bit about exactness, but you're exactly right. And you hit my ceiling or my floor. 6-1. You have to have a win bet, and so 11-1 at Sovereignty. Definitely, you have the win bet because if you're right. And so you want to walk away with the race with a little bit of something. But as you say, if your horse is 4-5, you shrug your shoulders.
Yeah.
But $14 or above or $20, you want to have something. So, and in the Derby, for the most part, you're getting odds that are going to make it worthwhile. A little bit of a win bet there. But again, my early favorite bet was exactas, and I still like that exacta box. I've gotten to play picks a little bit more. I like pick fours and some pick threes. You mentioned how tough the picks are on these 2 days. So maybe it's parsed down to a pick three because I think if you're right, you're going to get paid with that. But you're only looking at 3 races as opposed to 4 or 5.
Well,
so
no balls came back like 10, 15,000.
Yeah, that was a great call there. Putting a nice big price in the middle
I haven't
of a
looked
pick
at
three that paid okay.
any of the races besides these for the show. I'll start that now. But everything I've been reading on X's, it's like headbangers every race. I don't know how you horizontals get through it. I'd be exhausted before I called the ticket.
But again, it's also if you're losing confidence, think about a double because I think those are going to pay okay as well. But again, I was going to get to the point of the Derby every year with this size of a field. I make a much deeper exacta box than I normally would. Normally I'm the 3-horse box or maybe a 4-horse box if you can get a 12-1 shot in there or whatever. But I might go 5 or 6 or 7 in here if I look up the board and there are a couple of big prices in the
I don't
mix.
have the data for the Derby, but I do have it for the Breeders' Cup when it's 14 maximum. Very few nowadays go to 14. The 6-horse box is a profit margin for me through the years. So it's got to be tremendous with 20 options.
A non-sexy bet, but I say it every year. A day like Derby Day, if you don't want to send it in, but you want to watch the race, you can make some grinding money betting to show. The show prices are always more than it should be because of the tourists and the funny money going in.
It's a different day for multiple reasons. The Derby because of the number of entries, the amount of money in the pool. It's great.
Yeah, and we talk about it all year long. Field size, field size, field size.
All the time.
Here's the proof. When you get a 20-horse field, you look up at the odds board, you see the payoffs and whatnot.
I know I used to say it when we did the weekend thing, Seth. Panaceas are usually never accurate, but there is a panacea in horse racing, and that's field size.
Yeah.
It solves every wart, and I've looked at it a lot of ways, and I have a lot of criticisms, but field size solves everything because I look at it from the better standpoint. The rest doesn't matter. But.
All right, excellent. Great job, fellas. Kevin, we're rooting for you on Friday and Saturday. Knock it out of the
Good
park.
luck.
I guess the next set I'll be on will be either Belmont Week for a little hit or Saratoga.
Yeah,
Sometime down the road.
That's-
looking forward to it. We're
Well,
up
I'll
there.
shoot for my third straight profitable summer. Third.
That's good.
Have you ever done that? 3?
No.
'Cause I know you're showing a profit for the last cumulative
Yes.
5 years or
But
so,
not
right?
3. I had my mother-in-law passed away on a woman I love. I hate using the term summer mother-in-law. She's more like a mom. And the last week, it didn't matter. It didn't matter at all to me at all. But it was easily my worst week as a public handicapper ever. And I was, if I had had a moderate week, but it didn't happen. But it happened the next year, and it's fine. But
We fire it up again, though,
yeah.
sooner rather than later.
So what do we call? So July 10th is really opening day, right? That's how they were.
2 days after the
the July 3rd. So we have we have a June 6th opening day. We have a July 3rd opening day. And we have a July 10th opening day. This just gets better all the time.
And they're counting the Belmont Week races as part of the Belmont Meet, which I've never heard of because it's a different track surface. How can you count it as part of the Belmont Meet? That's got to be its own little festival meet, those 4 days.
Last year, did they put them out as Saratoga, though, right? The
Yes.
lettering?
Yes. That's what I hear.
Just where you're
But again, we'll be up there sooner rather than later for the third leg of the Triple Crown. But the first leg coming up on Saturday,
Good luck.
Kentucky Derby Saturday, Kentucky Oaks on Friday. So again, great job, fellas, and hope we gave out some good information. Fire it up Friday and Saturday. Cash some tickets. We appreciate your tuning in. We'll see you next time.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.